Hi, it's Debbie from Simply Special Crafts. Today we're going to talk about the Hunkydory Fabulous Florals Deco-Large kit. This Fabulous Florals Deco-Large kit, I did this for a couple reasons. One is that I needed some more cards to fill out my Christmas card boxes. That's what I give my family as gifts at Christmas time, and I needed a few extra cards. And it looked to me like I could do some fairly quickly and easily using this kit. And second, of course, I wanted to make some examples for you. This Fabulous Florals kit is just immense. It contains 2 of each floral design, and there are 12 different floral designs in the kit. Hunkydory estimates you'll get 24 cards from this kit. If you do it the way that we suggest, you're going to get 72 cards from this kit. Let's take a look. Before we get going, showing you the individual card samples, I wanted to show you some of the other supplemental materials that are available. This one has luxury inserts and paper pack. If you want to get the 72 cards I talked about, I recommend getting the insert pack. You won't have enough inserts to do all 72 cards, but by having the floral pieces, the supplemental floral pieces they add to this kit, it will give you enough backgrounds to finish all of your cards. So if you want inserts in all of them, you'll want 2 of these. Next, there is a little book of Fabulous Florals. I did not use the little book this time, but if you want to see some examples of how to use little book, you know that you can look at the last video that we did, the Twilight Kingdom, or you can also look at the Flight of the Butterflies videos we did for some ideas on how to use little book pages. These are great, by the way, for making your card designs. And you get 144 pages per book, which ultimately can be used for as many as 144 cards. And then Hunkydory recommends the Delicate Lace Luxury Foiled Acetate. The card designs I'm going to show you today do not include these, but I think as you look at the card designs, you can say very easy ways that we could have included the acetate designs had we chosen to do so. Let me show you what the component pieces look like. This is what you'll get for each of the card designs. You get the basic Deco-Large topper sheet, you get all the layering pieces, and you get a piece of background card. Now, I kept one of them out and incomplete so that I could show you how I made my choices of what to layer. If you used all of the pieces in a single card, that's what Hunkydory has in mind. They say this should make 1 card. I say this should make 3 cards. So let's take a look, assuming that you'd like to do it my way, because that's what you're going to see in this video. Let me show you how I would make the choices of what to put together. So I'm going to start by doing a little bit of punching. Of course, I'm going to use this card base for one. Now, I also wanted to point out that they call this a Deco-Large kit, but clearly, if you take a look at this topper piece, these are not huge pieces. This will fit very comfortably on either a 5x5, a 6x6, or a 5x7 card base. So this is not going to make an immensely huge card the way we'll do things. Then I'd look at this, and you can see that this card base right here has basically the full design. So we're going to use this as a base for another card. And then the largest image that I still have is this one. Don't worry about the hand brace, I just have a little bit of tendonitis in my left hand that I'm working on. So there's nothing terribly wrong with me. Okay, after I punch out the 3 that I'm going to use as my bases, you can see that I have 3 more here. This is very typical of these card kits. So I'm just going to match another image up with each of the 3 that I've started. And then I'm going to take the littler pieces and I'm going to match those. So my goal is that each of the cards that I will create will have at least 3 pieces, and in this case I'm going to have more than 3 pieces per card. And I think you'll agree when you see them that 3 pieces is enough to give you the dimension and a whole lot more cards than what the manufacturer indicates we will get from this kit. So I'm going to add one more here, one more here, another larger one here, and then these little ones I'm just going to kind of distribute around. So I'll put this one here, this one here. This little one here doesn't have the tulip pieces, so I'll add these extra little pieces to it. And that gives me my 3 card bases. I'm going to take just a minute and start layering those, we'll be right back. Okay, so we have gone ahead and layered these up with some foam tape, and you can see that we have at least 3 layers on each of our topper sheets. Here's our first one using the actual backer. Here's our next one that we did, and I actually see a little bit of extra paper there. I'm going to trim out with my scissors. See that little white spot? That kind of bugs me. So I'm just going to trim that right out with my scissors. So I like the looks of that one better. Here's another topper set that we have that's 3 pieces. And here's a third that has 3 layers. And don't those look nice? Now, it might bug you that this doesn't have all the pieces, and if it does, feel free to just make 2 cards out of this kit. I just like getting 3. Okay, and here's some of the other pieces that came out of our punch-out sheet, but I wanted to take just a moment to show you another little trick. Now when I clip out this ribbon, because you have to actually clip the ends of the ribbons, save this piece here that has the pretty border with the 2 gold sides. Now, that's supposed to be a throwaway piece, but you'd be surprised how often you can use these little pieces to do some very pretty things. In fact, at times, I would even use something like this. Now, I don't know if we will or won't use those in our cards today, but why not have them available if we find that we would have a use for them? Even this one potentially could be a border. Now at this point I may be getting carried away, but my point is that some of these pretty foiled edges can be just beautiful on our cards. So let's keep them till we know whether or not we can use them. Some of you have asked me about covering the cards, so I'm going to show you how to do that. I've put easy tear tape in 3 strips across my card. Now you'll note that I actually overlapped the easy tear just a little bit because I want my adhesive to come right out to the edge of the card, and that means since my tape is extra wide in easy tear tape, the adhesive will be right on the edge if I overlap it just a little. You'll also notice that I'm peeling the tape from the center because sometimes it's easier to get the tape to lift off without trying to lift the end of the tape if you tear it from the center and pull back. Now, when I match my card, I'm going to match my card up against my folded edge, and I'm glad you saw me do that because that's probably one of the most challenging things, is to make sure that your card goes on in the right place without having white showing along the edge. Try and match it up, and if anything, let it overlap slightly if you have to. Get it on the edge or overlap it slightly, because you can always trim it down a little bit if you have an overlap edge in the back. So, better scissors. I'm going to use my extra sharp little cutter bee scissors here, and I'm going to go along the back edge, being careful not to cut into my fold. And I'll just trim up along my fold line a little bit, and then I'm going to just cut out right around my card to get a topper or a card face that fits just right on the card that I'm covering. And there we go. Took just a few seconds, no measuring involved. Neat way to do things. So we're going to put our topper on next, and then we just kind of have to decide what kind of pieces we want to add. We're looking at, we could put a border here if we wanted to, and that looks nice, but I actually think it looks a little busy. I think it maybe looks better without it. We could, and sometimes this is just trying different things to see what works. I could add this one, and that looks okay. I think since I have a lot of straight edges here, round might be good. And actually I like that a lot, the Just For You with Love, and just to overlap that a bit. So I think we're just going to foam square this down. Now, when I put on foam squares, oops, I have paper floating all over the place. When I put on foam squares, I don't use a tremendous number of them. I put them every couple inches. So about 9 foam squares will take care of this great big topper pretty well. I'm just going to pop these off. Now don't worry, not all of our examples on this video are going to be this long. I'm just doing this for the purpose of showing those of you who have asked about the actual construction, the construction of just a simple card here. And we'll be done momentarily. So I'll peel off all these little backer pieces. If you have any trouble peeling these off, just use the sharp end of your scissors and pop under there. They'll flip right off of there. And lay down my topper, put a couple foam squares. I'll probably put 2 or 3 on this little circle, maybe one more, just to make sure it holds well. And then it's nice and stable on there, not tippy. Just For You with Love. And then just a little bit. And we're done. There's our card. Let's take a look at the other 2. As we were looking at our options for this third little piece, I realized that we actually had one of the papers from the Papers and Inserts pack. That's the full image. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put this right here. I've already put a card on the back. Now, this is floppy paper. This is not 350 GSM like our normal Hunkydory paper. But because I'm attaching a card to the back, I don't really care that it's not real stiff paper. I just care more about the image on it. So I'm going to use that for my third backer sheet. If you don't have the Papers and Inserts kit, using a small card and a piece of adorable scoreable with some of these pretty borders and things will serve you just right. But since I have this Papers and background kit and this piece left over from my prior work, I might as well use it. Love these super sharp little scissors for getting in and just really doing any little final cleanup work that needs to be done. Because it's lighter weight paper, it's a little bit more inclined to show little jagged cuts, so I've cleaned that up a little from the front. Look how pretty that turned out. We'll put some foam tape on here, and let's explore our options for borders. We have these pretty little pieces that we saved from earlier. There might be an opportunity to use one of those. Or, let's see, what else did we have? We have this little border that came with the set, and that could be really pretty to kind of tie things together. Maybe if we went right out to the edge with that one and added, not too keen on that one. What else have we got here? Sometimes we think that a border always has to go one direction, even though this is directional and it says happy birthday on it. Why not run it sideways? That's actually, I like the way it looks. So you could do best wishes for happy birthday or with love. Sending love for your birthday. Let's do that. I like the way that looks. Let's go there. Okay, so here's the one we just finished. Didn't it turn out pretty? And again, you know, we've got 3 nice layers. It's got some real dimensionality to it, and yet it was very economical to make. Here's our little 5x5 card that we did, just using an edge out of that cardstock with one of their borders and 3 layers of imaging. Here's the base image they created with a few layers and using one of those border sheets, and I think they're very pretty. And that's 3 cards where they estimated 1. Okay, here's the next set that we're going to look at. This is the roses. It's called Rose Bouquet, and there's the base layers. Remember, you're getting 2 base layers because this kit contains enough components to make 2 of each card. I'm only going to show you one each of the punch-out sheets. Of course, there's a second one just like this. And here's the corner cardstock, the printed cardstock that matches. So these sets really have 2 full sheets, and then if you bought them as individual sets, the third is a half of one of these, so you would get this one base plate if you're buying a single set. Let's take a look here. Now, Brittany's here with me, and Brittany recommended that it might be nice to show you what it looked like if we used all of the layers in a single card. So that's what I've done here. This is how many layers you end up with if you do this kit and you use all of the layers in a single kit. This is beautiful. You can send this in a regular envelope, but I might recommend actually sending it in a card box if you have one that is layered up that high, because that has a lot of layers and a lot of foam tape. It's beautiful, but I want to compare that to what Brittany and I made. Here's the same card that's made using just a few of the layers and saving some of the layers for an additional one. So here's the original. Here's ours. You'll notice it doesn't have quite the same levels of dimension. But in addition to this one, which was done on a 5x7 card, here's my base piece, my layering, You'll notice that on these cards I did not do a lot of extra embellishment because with all the layers, I just didn't think they needed it. So here's that card. In addition to that card, we got this one, which I've done in an A6 card, a US size A6, which is 6.5 by 5. We have these available in the store, and isn't that pretty? And we got this one that I made out of the corner treatment, and all I did was just add a couple of pieces of border. Now here's one of those borders, those salvage borders that I talked about. I thought that gave this a nice finished look, as well as the little red bow. But we got all 3 of these cards when Hunkydory estimated that we would get 1. So I just wanted to show you that. This is our next set, and Brittany completed these. You see, here we have our base sheets. This beautiful cardstock. Now, one of the things I really appreciate about Hunkydory is the way that they create things in the same sizes, so I can easily use some of these layering pieces directly on this cardstock. And as you can see here, obviously there's at least 3 large major pieces that we can break this into 3 images, especially when we're using these and the base plates. So pretty. Let's take a look at our cards here. I just love this little dotted background with a border. Isn't that pretty? The little birthday wishes. Now, these are called Deco-Large kits, but look at the size of these cards. You don't have to be afraid of these being huge, unwieldy sizes. We have a 5x5 that she's done here. Look at the way she's attached to little butterflies floating around it. You got the base plate. In this case, you just kind of move the corners out a little bit closer to the edges, creating that circular feeling, and then put them up on foam tape, you'll notice we just didn't do a lot of extra things because I just didn't think they needed it. These are quick, easy to complete cards, and you get a lot of them for the money. And again, this pretty little one. Look at these bright, pretty sunflowers. There's just something that just says, you know, they say it on here, wishing you lots of sunshine and happiness when you look at sunflowers. And here's our pretty sunflower images. Now notice there aren't as many pieces here, but we still were able to get 3 cards out of this set. Then we've got our sunflower borders. Let's take a look at what we did with them. Here's the first larger image. And I used just the larger image with a piece of that border because it looked kind of busy if I put the individual flowers next to it without creating a separation. It gave me a bigger card than I wanted. So I used the one that had the oval, and I really liked the way that looked. Then I overlapped this slightly to get me onto a 5x7 card. But didn't it turn out pretty? Here's I believe this is one of the larger cards I did. This one's a 6x6. But isn't that pretty, just with the nice border edge? I created that separation we talked about. It looks a little busy if it gets too close to here, so I moved it out a little bit and opted for a little larger card. Have a wonderful day. And I love this one. I just used a piece of dark green, Adorable Scorable. In this case, I separated the use of the ovals. You can see they used these around the ovals. That would have made a really large card. In this case, I chose to use those corner pieces with one of my smaller treatments because, as I said, this one didn't have as many pieces. Then we had that beautiful sunflower border, and I put that on both sides. And I just put on my label, but I just used a plain sheet of dark green Adorable Scorable with that. And didn't that turn out pretty? I love these poppies. Look at that bright, vivid red and the oranges. I think this is really, really a pretty set. They've outlined everything in white in this one, which is kind of interesting, but very pretty. And we got this flower vase standing on its head, and we've got this very nice corner treatment. You know what we're going to do with that. I started out by using the red one. In this case, I chose to move the corners way out to the corners, and I actually put this on the 6x6 gatefold card. But I think that's really pretty the way it turned out. And that rusty orange looks so pretty with a vivid red. I think that's just really pretty. One of these two, and I can't tell you which, was that corner treatment. In one case I did, I guess it's this one, because it's got a little bit of shadow. But you can see that just using the extra pieces, I was able to create almost an identical image without using a base behind it. Isn't that pretty? 2 little A2 cards. Here's our lilies. I think these are so pretty, and I'm so allergic to them. But I can't have them in the house, which makes me sad, but they're so pretty. Sending love and best wishes today and always. I can at least appreciate them in a card. They don't make me sneeze then. And here are my punch-out pieces. Look, 3 natural pieces right there, and then some extras. And then we've got this pretty lily border. Let's see what we did with it. In this case, I came in fairly close. It's a little bit busy, but the lilies themselves were large enough, so I thought we could pull that off okay. Best wishes, sending best wishes your way, just for you. And again, I believe this is a US A6, which would be a 6.5 by 5. We have those available in the store. Here's a little A2 card with lilies, just using that little border piece. In this case, I used a piece of Adorable Scorable behind it, just cream color. Or you could have just put it on a cream color card and not covered the face of the card at all, which I believe I did with another one in this set somewhere. But I thought that was really pretty. And in this one I used the base piece itself to separate it from the border. Once again, you know, utilizing the colors along the border without letting the patterns kind of blend together and get too busy. But I thought that was pretty. Once again, 3 cards. Here's our, what do we call these again? These are Callas. Calla lilies. That's what they are. Okay, there's the base pieces. There's our layering pieces. These are such elegant flowers. See them in lots of weddings and lots of funerals. Look at the pretty, pretty border piece. Okay. We broke them into 3 pieces. First we'll look at the actual base piece. I love the way these layer up because it made such a difference with the really delicate swirls of the Calla lilies to get those extra layers in there. I think that's really pretty. This one says, wishing you love and happiness on your special day. With this one, I've just used a piece of this background on an A6 card. In this one, I used one of the pieces out of the Inserts and Papers pack to create this background. I think it actually was intended for use with a different flower, but I like the way it looked with this one, so I used it. Just a little with love and put a border strip along the edge just to capture some interest and make it fancy. And this one was fun. And I found it somewhat challenging with the lilies to get the lily pattern close to this without it just really looking busy. So what I did is I covered my card this way. I cut a piece, I put my card behind here, and I left this much hanging out the end. Then I cut a piece off this side, fit it on here, cut around my card, and I put the strip in the middle. Then I layered my lilies on top of it, and I found when I was finished that I had way more hanging out this side than I did this side, so I put a couple border strips there just to even things back out, and I think it turned out really pretty. It's one of my favorite cards. I love the way the lilies kind of hang off the strip. That's really pretty. Brittany and I were just discussing what these little flowers are called. Amones. I think they're called anemones, but I'm not sure. That might just be the sea creature. But they're pretty little red and purple flowers with white, and we thought they were beautiful. There's our base layers. This has a number of really nice sentiments. It's got a wonderful grandma, get well soon, wishing you a day filled with beautiful moments, and these pretty borders. Beautiful layers. I like this one a lot. And then we have a beautiful border treatment as well as a nice corner in this one. And here's a piece of that. And this one's right off of that corner. We made this one to a wonderful grandma. Oh, no, it isn't off the corner. This is actually off of up here. And this was a base created using this base piece right here. It wasn't actually off the corner. Here's the base layer that's been built up. Again, it's on an A6 card, 6.5 by 5 US size. And all I've done is use the base layer, a piece of this cardstock, and the little layered sentiment that they gave us. And here's this corner right here. Just layering on top of that any get well and a little fine border strip. This one is reclaimed. This is one that was between the 2 printed pieces. And doesn't that look pretty? That's just a throwaway piece that we've utilized, and I think it looks really nice. This is a pretty bunch of flowers. It doesn't tell us what kind of flowers these are, but they're beautiful. And when we look at our examples, you'll see this is another one when we've separated the use of the oval and used the corners on a different card. Here's our layering pieces. And this one too has a nice corner treatment and a nice border. We can use both of those. Here's our big oval layered over the border strip, and I just put birthday wishes sentiment across the bottom. It doesn't get any easier than that. Cover my card, punch this out, put some foam tape on the back of that, glue the strip on it. But isn't it beautiful? Gorgeous. Here is where we used the corner pieces that originally went with the oval. Once again, we're using an A6 size card. That's a good size to have on hand for this kit because they really fit nicely. You won't really need much of anything that is larger than a 5x7 unless you just choose to make them larger. The four corners, and just putting our elements up on foam tape. Didn't that turn out pretty? Here's that corner that's just been cut out. We put a border strip right off of our sheet, best wishes on foam tape, and it just didn't need any more than that. If we wanted to naturally, we could have used acetate. We absolutely could have done glittering or other things. You could have used stickers, you could have used other stuff, but I just thought these were really pretty, left simple. This is a fun and interesting base layer where the vases are standing on the dresser. Made for some fun and interesting challenges as I put it together. We have a couple of base pieces, but I only had two, so we'll see what we did with that. We had a nice border though, and some drawers, and we had another nice base here. So let's see what we did. Here's the actual base layer, and literally all I did on this one was put this on a 5x7, 5x6.5 or 5x7 card. I put this border strip on it. I put my image up on some foam tape. Done. And pretty. Here is this base layer. I used that one, and I just used the partial piece of a base on top to layer that. It turned out just really pretty. Here's another recaptured border strip. And this one, for the background, I used a piece out of that Papers and Inserts paper pack and created this lavender background, which I thought was beautiful. This actually fit really nicely onto an A2 card, so I just used a little border strip with that, and isn't that just pretty? I like that a lot. I like all three of these cards, and you never would guess in looking at these three that you're making more pieces than the kit would have suggested. By now you may be wondering, how many cards is she going to show us? Well, remember, each one of these cards has 12, each one of the sets in here has 12 different designs, 2 of each set. So I'm showing you half of the kit. You can actually make twice this many cards. It's amazing. Here's our base layers. Now you'll notice this one's a little larger, so I'm going to put these on 5x7s. Here's our layers. This has a really nice, generously wide border strip. And here we go. Here's the one that's actually on the base layer. You'll notice on this one, or you might not notice unless I point it out, I put this on an ivory colored 5x7 card, and I didn't cover my card face because this had so much natural ivory in the background or in the image itself. I thought it was beautiful just leaving it alone. Had I covered, I probably would have covered it with ivory, and what's the use in that? So, and in this case, in order to fit a 5x7, because the image was so large, I actually took this sentiment piece and slid it slightly down behind some of my layering here so that I would still have a fairly even border around it. Here's another one where I've taken just the lavender of the background here, covered my A6 card, 6.5 by 5, used those pieces, and you can't even really tell that it would have been different on the original background. And a couple of border strips here, one of their little sentiments, and I think it turned out really pretty. And here's that big side edge, and I used some of my layering pieces on that. I cut it along the hearts strip they had there, added a sentiment, done. This is called In Full Bloom, and it's absolutely my favorite images in the set. Aren't they just stunning? Of course, I'm a real sucker for those lavenders and teals and blues. I just think it's beautiful. This, the sentiment that they send, says, with heartfelt sympathy. Look at all those beautiful blooms. And the background piece for this is just yummy. Isn't that beautiful? I had a piece of this left over. I'm going to make an extra card just using that image because I think that's so pretty. Cut out that image, put on a sentiment, done. So pretty. Here's the 3 cards we actually made from it. Here's our base layer. Now this will have to go in a 6x6 envelope because I chose to run this topper off the edge of my center step card. I just thought it looked really pretty that way though. So I covered my center step card with some ivory colored adorable scoreable. I ran a border across the bottom. I inserted this big topper right on the face of my card, added my little rhinestone embellishments, and covered these 2 little side pieces, these little, I think they're 1x4 inch borders, and I just think it's stunning. It's so pretty. Again, that'll have to ship in a 6x6 envelope. And aren't these pretty just on this piece of the background? Isn't that pretty? And just a little bouquet of flowers. In this case, I only used that border. I did put a little piece of my border strip here to bring in some of the shiny foiling I added with love in my little bouquet. Simple, so pretty. And here, I've done exactly the same thing. I've used a piece of my border. Note that the piece of border I'm using is a throwaway. There's that little piece of border right there. I used it along here to bring that shiny foiling back in. Put my beautiful bouquet at an angle across there, a little A2 card. And this says, on your special day. Aren't they just beautiful? Can you believe that this comes from one kit and that this is just half of the Fabulous Florals kit? If you make the cards the way we just did, 72 cards from one kit. Of course, you're supplying your own cards and envelopes, and you will need a pack of the papers and inserts to have enough backgrounds to do all of them if you want to do that, or some adorable scoreable, and that's great too. I do recommend one more thing. Because all of these cards have layers, and the layers will catch on one another in your card box, I recommend that you put them into these cello bags. We sell these under Hunkydory in the store. They come in a pack of 50. I think they range anywhere from $6 to $8 for 50 of these bags. But the beautiful thing about that is that you can put the card with the matching envelope together, seal them up in the little cello bag, and they'll all stay neat and organized and won't tear each other up when you pull them out of your box. So, a good idea. This has been Fabulous Florals from Hunkydory. I'm Debbie from Simply Special Crafts, and we'll see you next time.